Hey everyone, my name is Mr. Alexis B. Gloria, and welcome to my class. This is the introduction to the philosophy of human person. We're still in quarter 1, module 2.1, or methods of philosophizing. Let me share you now my screen. Okay, so to give you a preview about this module, divided into, okay, it's not module. Okay, it's divided into two lessons. Number one, we have knowledge and truth. Number two, we have lessons, theories of truth. Now, these are now the most essential learning competencies. After going through this module, you are expected to distinguish opinion from truth. Number two, realize that the methods of philosophy lead to wisdom and truth, and the specific objectives are the following: identify the meaning, the importance, and source of knowledge. Number two, describe the steps and the processes of acquiring knowledge. Number three, explain how validating one's knowledge leads to truth. And number three, compare and contrast different theories of truth. Let us move on with the first activity. This part is a 15-item multiple choice type of test, and this is found on page 6 to 7 of your module. And in here, you are asked to select the keyword that best fits the statement in each item. So you are also asked to write the chosen letter on a separate sheet of paper. So go ahead. Okay. Let's say you guys are done with what I know. Let us move on with the content of this lesson. Again, you're still in lesson 1, knowledge and truth. There are many definitions of knowledge and truth, but accordingly, there is a reminder for everybody that there is a big difference to what we feel is true and what really is true. Sometimes we feel that this is true, but actually it is not. So this is a reminder for everybody that in doing or in making decisions, you have to use your thinking or rational thinking rather than your emotions. To think, however, is an act of choice, which is not always done properly. All right. So I think this is a reminder for all the teenagers out there that when you actually fall in love, you do not only use your emotions, but again, you use your um, thinking or your rationality. All right. Next, in what's in, you are asked to make a hashtag at this 5 of what you have learned about the significance of epistemology or act of knowing from the previous lesson. Okay. So once again, do the following. Okay. Let's say you guys are done. Okay, let's move on to the concepts related in this lesson. The first concept to define, we have knowledge, and the English word knowledge can mean many different things. Like when you say knowledge, it can be familiarity. It can also be capability. So knowledge can be, for example, talking. You're capable of talking, therefore it's a kind of knowledge. Theoretical knowledge or knowledge that, or the knowledge of certain theories, for example, or recorded knowledge. So anything that can be perceived by um, by our rationality, it can be considered as knowledge. It can be explicit, like for example, a statement. It can also be implicit, as in you're knowing how to walk, or a bit of both, like your knowledge of language. Knowledge is one of the biggest ideas in religion, in philosophy, and science, as it is to the ideas, truth and reality. And Plato famously defined knowledge as justified true belief. And philosophers agree that this definition isn't complete, but it's a good place to start. Like that, when you say knowledge, it's an idea which is true and which has been justified. Okay, so more about knowledge. Knowledge literally enabled mankind to survive and reach the present level of our civilization. Meaning to say, we are in this state in our life that if we're about knowledge, if we're not able to acquire knowledge, we will not be in the place that we are in today. It is on the recognition of the supreme importance of knowledge that gave rise to the branch of philosophy known as epistemology. And let us therefore explore the meaning, the foundation, and the importance of epistemology. Okay, so when you say epistemology, it's a science devoted to the discovery of the proper method of acquiring and validating knowledge. Paano daw tayo nag-acquire ng knowledge at paano natin ma-determine if it is really true? The knowledge that we had gained, that's part or that's the concentration of epistemology. Pag sinabi ng epistemology, it's the philosophical study of the nature, the origin, and limits of human knowledge. The term is derived from the Greek episteme, meaning knowledge, and logos, meaning reason. And accordingly, the field is sometimes referred to as the theory of knowledge. There are two purposes of epistemology. Number one, to show how we can acquire knowledge. And number two, to give us a method of demonstrating whether the knowledge we acquired is really knowledge or is it really true. So mamaya pag-uusapan natin yan. Okay? So according to Ayn Rand, knowledge is a mental grasp of reality reached either by perceptual observation or by a process of reason based on perceptual observation. So in this particular definition, you can actually have a preview of the two opposing views. We have the empiricist view and we have the rationalist view. Accordingly, knowledge is a retained form of awareness. Okay, and it's retained in our mind, of course. That everything that we perceive is retained in our. Everything that we perceive, we became aware of it, and then it became knowledge, as it retained in our mind. Okay. Now, Miss Rand's definitions give us two ways. First, we can acquire knowledge using our senses, meaning to say our sense of sight, hearing, taste, feeling, and smell. So this method of acquiring knowledge is called empiricism, and it has many adherents in the history of philosophy, such as John Locke, George Berkeley, and David Hume. Explain ko lang. So pag sinabi natin empiricist view, they believe that we were born tabula rasa or blank slate, meaning we have nothing in mind um, as we are born in this world, and we only gain knowledge because of the experiences that we go through. Okay, so next we have the empiricist. We have from left to right. This is John Locke. This is George Berkeley, and this is David Hume. All right. More about the empiricist. The empiricism. This is the view that all concepts originate in experience, that all concepts are about or applicable to things that can be experienced, or that all rationally acceptable beliefs or proportions are justifiable or knowable only through experience. This broad definition accords with the derivation of the term empiricism from the ancient Greek word empiria, meaning experience. Okay, so let us now move on to the rationalist view. Second, we can acquire knowledge by thinking with the use of our minds, that what philosophers call the rational faculty. So baliktad yan nung kanina, kung pinanganak tayo sa mundo na meron na daw tayong rational faculty according to the rationalist view. This is what rationalism advocates, and some well-known rationalists in history are René Descartes, Baruch, Spinoza, and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Okay, so they are the following. Okay, so again, we have René Descartes on the first picture. Second, we have Baruch Spinoza, and the third, we have Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. So rationalists believe that rather than being a tabula rasa, kabaliktaran nga again ng empiricists, to be imprinted with sense data, the mind is structured and by and responds to mathematical methods of reasoning. And some of our knowledge or the concepts we employ are part of our innate rational nature. So meron na tayong rational faculty nung pinanganak tayo. Experiences may trigger a process by which we bring this knowledge to consciousness, but the experiences do not provide us with the knowledge itself, which has in some way been with us all along. Okay, so these are the things that we, or the things, or the processes, or the steps how we acquire knowledge. And this is the first part of epistemology. So the first one is when we actually see, when we actually, how to say, reflect on our existence, the way we see things, and and that means reality or being. Existence is everything there is, or the universe. It includes everything we perceive, like animals, plants, human beings, inanimate objects, and everything inside our heads, our thoughts and emotions, which represents our inner world. So pag sinabi natin existence, existence is really all there is to know. And if nothing exists, knowledge is impossible. I'll try to relate this with the second one, which is perception. So we tend to see reality through perception. Our first and only contact with reality is through our senses. Knowledge begins with perceptual knowledge. Now, meaning to say, we tend to see reality by actually using our senses. Okay? Nahawakan natin ang isang bagay, nakikita natin ang isang bagay, or nararamdaman natin ang isang bagay, or naririnig natin ang isang bagay, and that became reality. Okay? So relating that to this, we now have a concept. So we therefore group them into one class. So lahat ng nakikita natin or napiperceive natin sa mundo, tinatry nating how would I say that? We try to group them accordingly. We try to see the differences among these things, and we then can create a concept. Kumbaga. And concept, if I may say, can be inductive or deductive. Kumbaga, from something general down to specific, or specific to general. Okay, so we therefore group them into one class or group, name the group man or human being, and define what that group is to give it identity. And we now have a concept, which according to one dictionary means an abstract or generic idea generalized from particular instances. Okay. So number 4, after after having a reality, perceiving things, and after creating a concept, we can now create a proposition. A proposition is a statement that expresses either an assertion or a denial. So meaning to say it can be positive or negative, that an existent belongs to a class or possess a certain attribute. Like, again, this is related to the third, which is concept. Okay, so after that, after making a proposition, we can now have an inference. So ito yung proseso para makapag-acquire tayo ng knowledge. Okay, according to, and the last process or step is to make an inference. According to Hurley, an argument is a group of statements, one or more of which the premises are claimed that provide support for or reason to believe one of the others, the conclusion. Okay, for example, this is an example of an argument. All men are mortals. Socrates is a man, and therefore, Socrates is immortal. So a conclusion is a statement that we want to prove. So the last line here, therefore Socrates is mortal. This is what we call the conclusion. And the first two statements are what we call the premises. So a premise provides justification, evidence, and proof to the conclusion. So an argument expresses a reasoning process which logicians call inference. So that's how we acquire knowledge. Okay, let us move on now to the second part of epistemology. We're still in the nature of truth, but after acquiring knowledge, so the next step is to validate that if it is true, or the knowledge that we have gained is actually true. So the first step to validate one's knowledge is to ask oneself, ask yourself, how did that arrive at this belief? by what steps. So you have to go through now with the first, with the process that you went through earlier. So from reality down to um, down to the last one, which is inference. Okay. So the second we have retrace the steps you took to acquire the knowledge, or you have to go back, reverse engineer the process, and one will therefore realize that the steps you took to acquire knowledge, again, we have perception, concept, proposition, and inference, are the same steps needed to validate one's knowledge, but in reverse order. The third step is through a consensus. Kapag acceptable siya sa mas maraming tao, although there is a limitation here, if the majority agrees that the statement is true, then it is true. But not all things, um, um, or not all things are can be, or this concept can be applied. That majority agrees that the statement is true, then it is true. And number four, we have to test it by means of action. So that's how you validate one's knowledge, to test it by means of action. All right, now let's now move on to the difference between truth versus opinion. Pag sinabi natin truth, it's knowledge validated, and when we say validated, we mean they are based on facts and facts of reality. There are many sources. Another way to do it is to find many sources that can validate the truth of that statement. Pag sinabi naman opinion, it can be just a preference, it can be just interpretation of facts. So more about that, more about truth and opinion. Truth is based on facts of reality, can be confirmed with other sources, and independent of one's interpretation or preference and biases. And when you say opinion, it's based on emotions, it's open to interpretation, cannot be confirmed or inherently biased. The examples can be seen on your module. Okay, so just to end the first part of this module, so I'll be leaving you with this quotation. The world is darkness, knowledge is light, but knowledge with truth is a mere shadow. Thank you very much.